Hi guys, welcome back aboard Spiffy, our 44-foot hurricane damage DIY catamaran project boat. We are 100% ready to get this big hunk of fiberglass back in the water. That's going to involve some giant trucks and a giant crane. We're currently waiting for the owner of the yard to figure out how to actually get us out of the yard here, but rather than just sit around twiddling our thumbs waiting for him, a little side quest has popped up, a truck-shaped side quest. Once we're in North Carolina, it would be great to have a work truck for hauling sheet goods, trash, and just all kinds of other stuff for the boat project. Enter stage left, our friend Dave's Dodge Ram 1500 from 1997 with the 5.2 V8 engine. The blue truck, as it is very fittingly named, looks a little rough around the edges, but I think we might actually have a diamond in the rough here. Although the odometer is showing 300,000 miles, the engine only has 50,000 miles on it, and although the truck is 28 years old, there's barely a lick of rust. Now, am I a car guy? No, but I do have 2 hands, and as of recording this, still all 10 fingers, plus I love learning new skills. Considering that we want to use this truck as a work truck and also how affordable parts are for these trucks, I think it's the perfect vehicle for us. The blue truck had been sitting for almost a year, and it had what Dave suspected was a dead fuel pump. With a little bit of help from some heat and some PB Blaster and Mr. Ukka-Dukka, I removed the 4 front bolts securing the bed to the frame and loosened the 2 back bolts. With an old engine hoist, Dave, sporting a broken arm, lifted the bed of the truck to give us access to the top of the fuel tank where the pump assembly is located. I spent a bit of time cleaning around the fuel pump assembly to attempt to keep as much gunk as possible out of the fuel tank. After a quick trip to a local auto parts pusher, we now have a brand new Delphi DFG 0212 fuel pump assembly, and that led us to having a running truck. There are 2 other mechanical things we would like to fix on the truck, and that is brakes and AC. But because we don't know when the owner of the yard is going to be able to move the catamaran, which I'm hoping will be soon, and I don't want to get stuck with a truck that's halfway done, we are going to outsource those 2 jobs to a mechanic. What Ava and I can get started on is tearing out the old interior, because a lot of the stuff will need to be replaced. As you can see, the dash, or whatever little pieces are left of it here, is not doing so well. That is a classic issue with the 2nd generation Dodge Rams. Apparently the dashboards just started splintering after a bit of time. It's a 20-year-old truck, so of course the upholstery is not doing so well. Dave already has foam and new upholstery for the driver's seat here. The headliner is sagging, so we want to replace that. I've also ordered new carpet. The mission for today is to tear everything out. First on the to-do list were the seats. With the bolts loosened, the front seats came out without any issues. The back seat was a little bit more of a puzzle. It turns out, after having undone the bolts, you need to lift out before you can lift up. After having removed a few other things that were bolted in place on top of the carpet, we were finally able to remove all of the old carpet. Thanks to the rapid disassembly technology invented by Dodge in the mid-90s, removing the dash was mind-boggling quick and easy. Once we verified that everything works, I'll replace the plastic dash with an aluminum dash. In all fairness to the dash, a lot of materials do seem to get cooked pretty quick in the Florida sun, like for instance the steering wheel cover. One of the things Dave told us wasn't working was the airflow selector switch doohickey. This one uses vacuum rather than electronics to direct heat or air conditioning. That is done using these little tubes on the back. Luckily, Dave had already picked up some silicone hose and installed a manifold for the vacuum. All we need to do is just to tie into it. It was at this point I started feeling like I was being watched, and wouldn't you know it, hiding on a coolant hose was this little lizard trying its very best to fit in. Anywho, we got the vacuum hose connected. Next time we run the engine, we'll see if the controls are still working. Meanwhile, Ava was busy cleaning up the old seats. You can buy a complete set of seats for this truck for around $1,000, including frames and everything, but this is a work truck, so the seats are going to have seat covers on them anyways, so hopefully we can reuse the old seats. To reach our goal for the day of having everything ripped out of the truck, I removed the old side trim to be able to remove the headliner. And just like that, we have a completely blank canvas to work with. Again, we're not going for perfection here, but clean and functional would be awesome. The blue truck got picked up by AAA to have a lovely little vacation at Jim's Auto on Merritt Island. If you're in the area, I highly recommend them. What good project wouldn't involve taking 2 steps forward and then 1.5 steps backwards? Let's start with the good news. We now have working air conditioning. We have a brand new shiny air conditioning compressor. We have new lines, new condenser, and new accumulator. And speaking of the new shiny accumulator, if you look right below it, you might be able to see just a little bit of new brake line. Right down there. They've replaced about 4 feet. That means we now have working brakes, working emergency brake, and also working air conditioning. So that's 3 steps in the right direction. Now for the not so good news. We seem to have developed a key holder down here in the headers. It's now a very convenient place to place your key. We have a great big open hole here. If I just pull the key out, you might be able to see it in there. That's not great. It's a pretty decent sized hole and you can very clearly hear it when we start the truck. Pop, 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 right? But let me turn it off again. The timing of this is just a little bit weird, right? Because we ran the truck here in the driveway. There was no sign of an exhaust leak. It sounded perfect. Then the hole must have opened up either on the tow truck or at the mechanic. It's just weird timing, right? But either way, we need new headers. Dave has pace setter headers on here now, and as you can see, they're neatly wrapped in fiberglass. We'll replace like for like. I don't know what the lead time is, but hopefully we can get new headers sometime next week. So that's 1 step backwards. Then we have another about half a step backwards because at the mechanic they had trouble keeping the car running. They told us that it would die on them after having run for a little bit and that they had seen on the fuel pressure gauge that the fuel pressure was down to 10 psi. What the mechanic saw was that the fuel pressure would drop after the engine had been running for a while, so let's see if we can reproduce that. Looking at the gauge right now, we're at 50 psi, which according to Dave is absolutely perfect. So no issue with fuel pressure starting out. We've been idling for about 4 or 5 minutes. So far no issues with fuel pressure, but I can confirm that the air conditioning is nice and cold. Now, I saw the engine cut out at the mechanic because it just happened to show up at the point where they were doing a bit of a test drive. So I know there is an issue, even though I can't reproduce it right now. Having seen that, I think our only logical choice is to yet again raise the bed and take a peek inside of the fuel tank. More than likely, there's probably some crud in there. It's also time to start putting the interior back together. So for the second time within a week of owning the truck, we removed the front seats.
Here I am, ready to tackle the noble art of reupholstering the driver's seat. I clearly had no idea how, but YouTube University did. After a brief lesson, I emerged a certified seat separation specialist. But wait, plot twist, there was more base. Thankfully, Dave University handed me a tool to lighten the load and my spirit. Once the seat was liberated, it was time to get down to business. Removing the old cushion was pretty straightforward. Just unclip it from underneath and pop it off, like unwrapping a gift, filled with dust from 1997. Bonus, I found some treasures. Oh, a penny. The top was velcroed and hog-ringed down, but it popped off with a little convincing. Then I discovered you can just pull the entire cushion off in one go. Thanks again, YouTube. Cue my shining moment, cleaning. I gave that thing a scrub worthy of a spa day. Putting the new cushion and cover on is fairly straightforward. You just pop the new cushion on, make sure it's lined up, Then I did a test fit of the cover. Here you can see where the Velcro is so the cover doesn't wiggle around, and here is the wire that you clip the hog ties to. Enter hog ties and these special pliers. I have never used them before, and this could have gone terribly wrong, but it didn't. It was easy and, dare I say, kind of fun. Then it was time to reassemble. Reverse the process and clip everything back in. A little trimming here and there, but it all clicked back together. And bam! Brand new cushy seat for the Oh Glorious Sanding Mobile. That's what we're calling it, right?
Getting access to the fuel tank by raising the bed is super easy. There are 4 bolts that need to be removed and 2 bolts that need to be loosened. It is also really nice to be able to crawl in under the truck without using a lift or ramps. That is not the case with our 2001 Honda CR-V. To raise the bed, I need to remove the 2 backup lights on the bumper and also to disconnect the fuel fill from the bed, but other than that, it only takes a few minutes to raise the bed. I don't know if there's an issue with the new fuel pump I installed about a week ago, but seeing as the truck ran fine in the driveway, I'm thinking it's either debris in the tank or just old gas. To really be able to get a good look inside of the tank, I siphoned out the content. There wasn't any debris that got sucked out, but I still want to clean the inside of the tank. Dave suggested using a bit of carb cleaner. The tank was easily cleanable by just poking my whole arm in there. There wasn't really much grime or any debris in the tank. Now, seeing that, I decided to install a brand new fuel pump, figuring that the one I installed last week might have an issue. The worst part about installing one of these new fuel assemblies here is getting the little rollover fuel vent snapped into place. A tiny bit of grease really helps a lot. Oddly enough, the fuel sender arm came attached to the first pump I installed, and also I noticed this new pump was a much better fit inside of the tank. It went in with a fraction of the force required for the first one. After having reconnected the hose to the fuel pump and to the vent, we lowered the bed back down again, with Ava making sure the fuel fill lined up correctly. I added 10 gallons of fresh gasoline, and presto! With the truck yet again running, we moved on to the sound deadening. Seeing as all of the interior is already out of the truck, it makes a lot of sense to add this stuff now. Ava spent about an hour cleaning out the inside of the truck, making sure we had nice clean surfaces to bond to. She did a really good job. Getting the sticky strips of sound deadening adhered in place was much easier than I had expected, and trimming them was really easy with just a pair of scissors. We covered all possible surfaces in between 1 to 3 layers of sound deadening as recommended by the manufacturer. I never got a chance to drive the truck before we added all of this stuff, so I don't know how big of a difference it'll make, but I'm sure it can't hurt. Next up, it was time to install the new carpet. The instructions mentioned to unfold it and leave it out in the sun for a little bit to get nice and flexible. Finally, an upside to the sweltering heat in Florida. Installing the carpet was also much easier than I had feared. We got it maneuvered into position inside of the truck so that the molded areas lined up with the shape of the floor. There were a couple of areas where the shape of the carpet didn't really match the shape of the floor, but we decided to forge ahead. Trimming the carpet was also super easy with a knife and a pair of scissors. We opted for the added mass version of the carpet. I'm assuming that makes it a little bit harder to cut, but it should also provide even more sound dampening and also some heat insulation. After much fiddling about, being careful not to trim too much carpet, I removed the last little bit of trim to do the final bit of trimming, and just like that, we had a brand new carpet. Then we could finally start putting everything back together again. Unfortunately, we don't have the new headliner yet, and it won't ship for another few weeks. So these side panel trim pieces might have to come out again when we get the headliner, but we'll install them for now and cross that bridge later. With the back seat in place, the truck is really starting to look like a truck again. The finishing touch, of course, was adding the front seats. Ta-da! If you look past the missing dash and also the missing headliner and a few dangly bits all around the truck, we now have a drivable truck. On the outside of the truck, we have some rust here on the bumper. A brand new bumper is only about 200 bucks, so it might be worth it to change that out in the not too distant future. Currently the rust is hidden very neatly under this aluminum tape, but as you can see, it is lurking right in there. The truck definitely also needs a good bit of pressure washing to attempt to get rid of the last bit of clear coat on here. But yeah, we also have this mirror. The mirror is held in place by a pair of vice grips here because it's lost the little indents that make sure the mirror just doesn't collapse while you're driving. But we have a new mirror. This is one of the things that made me excited about this truck as a bit of a project truck and as a good learning experience for me, because parts are so cheap. Look at all this shiny bling here. This whole assembly, and this is the electric version, which is what we have here, it was $30. So while I don't know a lot about trucks, and while this is never going to be a museum piece, I think it is going to be a really fun little side project for me. To replace the old mirror, all we need to do is remove 3 screws from this bit of trim, pull this panel off, and then we should have access to the 3 nuts. And just like that, we have a brand spanking new mirror. Now, if it looks like the sun is in a bit of a different position in the sky, it's because I spent the last hour getting some nuts for this new mirror because the old ones were a different size. I then came back and looked in the bottom of the little bag that the mirror came in and promptly found a bag with the 3 nuts I was missing. Now, every time I look at my reflection in this beautiful mirror, I can see Captain Dum-Dum staring back at me. It is finally time for our first test drive. We haven't driven the truck yet, so we don't know if there's anything else wrong with it, but we shall find out shortly. Reverse works, that is a great start.
And we're off. We got our seatbelt on.
Yep, here we go.
Ooh.
Okay, we can definitely still hear that exhaust leak. It is very loud in here, but
It's like when you put the card on the back of your bike wheel. That's what we sound like.
So keep in mind, I am not a truck guy. To me, the steering seems a little bit slobby. I know that is a thing with some trucks. So yeah, I don't know if this is normal or not, but we'll take a closer look at it.
The air conditioning is working great though. It's nice and cold. Just got a straight blast. You're probably loving it.
Yeah, the air conditioning is awesome.
But for me, the parts that I like are the little details, you know, the hanging light, this dangling mic over here, of course, the lack of dashboard or headliner, you know, it's just what separates this truck from civilization, I don't know, sanity.
Like a boring new one. Now this is the first time I've ever driven a truck like this, and it is definitely bigger than our CRV. I am struggling a little bit to figure out how much room we're taking up on the road, so that is something I'll have to get used to. It's just a matter of, yeah, getting used to it.
When I married a Danish man, you know, I thought that he would be introducing me into, you know, like the more simplistic Danish ways of living. Never did I thought that I would have such an effect on him.
I think we've made some excellent progress with the blue truck this week. Next week, we're going to be back here aboard the catamaran to tie up a few loose ends. But before the truck is ready for the 900-mile trip to North Carolina, there are a few more things we would like to check out, like, for instance, the steering and the suspension. With a little bit of luck, my friend Tim might be able to procure access to a car lift so we can get the truck up so we can take a better look underneath it. I think that would be a lot of fun. Hopefully that'll happen in the next week or two. And that is going to be the end of this week's video. I hope to see all of you guys back here aboard the catamaran next week for yet more glorious DIY fun. As always, feel free to leave a comment down below, and don't forget, if you've enjoyed this video,
Please remember to leave a like.
See you!
I have to now. I can't not now.